Well, a very warm welcome to Christian Beck, owner-skipper of last year's line honours winner in the Sydney Hobart race, after many years of trying on LawConnect. But Christian, we'll get to that a bit later. Let's talk a bit about you and how you started sailing. I think I'm right in saying you didn't start at a really young age. It was a bit later in life that you got involved in sailing?
Yes. I had a stepfather and he used to watch the Sydney Hobart every Boxing Day, and I got into watching it with him there. But he was very reluctant to take us sailing very often. we had this Manly Junior that was in the garage forever, but I think we took it out about twice. so unfortunately I didn't learn much as a child. But then a little bit later, when I was about 20, I bought this Bluebird boat, which is a very small boat, with a friend, and did a bit of sailing like that. And then later we kind of got a better boat, but it was pretty kind of informal. Just we'd take it out the heads on a windy day, kind of have a few beers and things like that. And then I sort of started doing twilight racing probably 15 years ago, and then sort of morphed into becoming, I always wanted to do the Sydney Hobart, so I then started looking around for a boat to do the Sydney Hobart.
And did you have an early mentor besides your stepfather, or was anyone that sort of held your hand a little bit along the way with sailing?
I don't think so, no.
Right. So which first yacht besides the Bluebird, what did you acquire after that?
I had a boat that was a 30-foot fiberglass boat. I don't even know what brand it was, but it was pretty old. I don't know what it was. Yeah. And then, as I said, we used to do a bit of just social sailing, right? You know, Sydney Harbour, taking friends out and, you know, going across from, the voyage was somewhere from Drummoyne to Watson's Bay and back kind of thing.
Right. Hardly a Sydney Hobart race. But so, well, then how did we sort of progress from there into bigger boats and better boats?
Well, I think it's funny because my stepfather always wanted to do the Sydney Hobart and he never did. And I sort of thought I always wanted to do it as well. And then I always had the idea of probably wanting to do it. And then also I was very mesmerised by the Supermaxis and thought about eventually loving to, you know, try and win the race. But I was looking around for a 50-foot boat. I thought I'd buy something like a TP52. But when I was looking around, the boat broker put Perpetual law in front of me, and it was basically cheap. It was probably about as much as a good TP52 might cost, for example. And so I kind of thought I would do that, and I had no idea about how big a deal it actually was and how much the maintenance was and how big a team you'd need around it to do it. I was quite naive about all of that.
But a massive step. I mean, thinking about a 50-footer and you end up with a 100-footer, I mean,
yeah.
You must have thought, wow, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
I guess, with crew and putting the whole campaigns together. That was about, what, 2016, 2017 you acquired Perpetual Loyal, something like that?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first ocean race I actually did was the Sydney Hobart, the first time on that boat, which was renamed Infotrack.
Yes. So that was your first Hobart race?
It was the first ocean race, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So who helped you put the whole program together?
Well, the really good thing about that boat, it kind of came with a team in a sense. So I bought it, and then pretty soon after, Black Joe, I originally was talking to Bradshaw Kellett, and then Black Joe called me up, and Black Joe kind of like came with the boat, you could say. And so that was very, very helpful. And then in the first year, the only problem was the first year Black Joe couldn't go, so we worked with North Sails and we put a team together. And Tom Slingsby was the skipper.
Yes.
That also, running it that year. And so we kind of like put that together. And it was a kind of it was difficult because it was all these people that hadn't sailed much together as a team. But we got a reasonable result. We sort of fourth over the line. We're inside the previous record, but we did break a lot on the way down, and there was a fair bit of issues. And then we put our form in late and got a 20-place penalty. So there's a range of issues, but we got there, you know.
So it obviously didn't discourage you, it encouraged you, I guess, to keep going, did it? I mean, you then saw the enormity of the project, of people and management and money and everything.
Yeah.
So you obviously kept going.
Yeah, look, I think what happened that first year, it was way more expensive than I thought and required a much more team and management. But it also gave a lot of very positive PR to the business. And for me personally, it was great to be considered like a proper sports person, to be interviewed by people like yourself and things like that was quite an honour actually, and surprising honour. So there's a lot of positives about it that offset the cost. And then the attitude has been over time that if you weigh it up, it's worth it because it's expensive. But the thing is that the returns on it are great, and our staff members love being involved. It's great for the company to have the involvement as well.
But then I think I'm right in saying that Tony Mutter then became integral part of the program for you, the New Zealand Yachtsman.
That's right. Yeah. So what really happened was, in the first year, we didn't have Black Joe or Tony Mutter because Tony Mutter was doing the round the world ocean race
For the sixth time.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and so that was hard. But the following year we had Black Joe and Tony Mutter, and a couple of years later, Black Joe joined Comanche essentially, and Tony took over, and Tony's been running it ever since.
Yeah. Well, the boat. When you owned it, I mean, when you didn't own it, it was a runner-up in 2013, and then you had 3 goes at runner-up, 2019, 2021 and 2022.
Yeah.
So you were getting close, but not quite there. I mean, there was Wild Oats on the scene, Comanche was back, so there was a lot happening.
Yeah.
Did any thoughts that have maybe sort of giving it away, or encourage you to keep going till you could finally get the ultimate prize?
Yeah, sure. I think you always, every now and again, ask yourself why you're doing this, and I do that. But I've never seriously thought about discontinuing. I think a lot of it comes down to, I think with Tony Mutter and the team he has, they're very, very good and very enthusiastic and good people to have around. If they didn't have that enthusiasm and they weren't there, I probably would have given up. But because they've always been so good and so strong, that's kept me, it's made it easy for me, but it's also kept me wanting to keep going as well.
I'll take you to December 2023, which is a few months ago, and the big boat race on the harbour. Lovely day, and the red hot favourite, no doubt about it, was Andrew Comanche. I think everyone expected them to probably win. But that wasn't the case. You got a great start, good tactics, and you won. And I can remember you at the prize giving saying, look, this is fabulous. It's one of the great days of my life, winning the harbour race. That's right, isn't it? I mean, you really did well there, and you thought it was such a feather in your cap.
No, it was a great outcome, and it was a surprising outcome for me because we've done a few of those before. We've never won before. And against Comanche, it was amazing and I think it's funny, I was talking to Tony Mutter afterwards, and he was saying, we were flogging the boat really hard, I hope you don't mind. And I said, I didn't even notice I was flogging it that hard, but on the videos, all those fast tacks and stuff and fast furls, that's pushing the boat hard. But they did that, but I think that also helped them in Hobart because it's exactly the same in Hobart.
Yeah. So we go to Boxing Day, and again, I think fair to say that Andrew Comanche was the favourite.
Yeah.
And you had a little bit of drama straight after the start, just outside the heads when the furling line broke.
Yeah.
You had to jibe, and everyone didn't quite know what you were doing until we worked out what you were doing. So not the greatest of starts, but then you're off and running.
Yeah.
Talk us through the first part of the race.
Well, look, we were very happy at the start because we were off the line first and we were clearly going very well. Obviously, when the furling line hit, that was disappointing because we'd done so well to get where we were. But having said that, what happened was that we did that jibe and we had a very big sail up, and I think we were trying to transition to our big jib, not our sort of, I think it was a J0 or whatever it was, but that kind of ended up being the right sail because it kind of got a bit lighter. So, and then we were able to get, I think we crossed Comanche head, and then we were able to get ahead. So it was actually great.
That it happened, yes.
It's sort of, I think the thing is, as it turned out, and we were leading the race early on,
Yeah.
that's always. I mean,
Yeah.
any time you're winning, especially against Comanche, it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that we were winning early on pretty clearly, you know.
But just go back a step. The crew, I mean, obviously Tony Mutter and Chris Nicholson are an integral part of it, along with yourself. Who gathered the rest of the crew? Were they Tony and yourselves work about who should come on board? Because you've got a big crew aboard,
Yeah.
plus some employees of the company, which we'll get to in a moment. But
Yeah.
where do the nucleus of the crew come from, or who assembles those?
So Tony Mutter does the whole thing. Because what I always find with leadership in any business, or it's like a business in my assessment, that because a big team of people, but it's very important the leadership's very, very clear. So I think one of the strengths we've had is that I 110% support Tony, everyone knows that, and he has complete autonomy on everything to do with the people, the boat and the race tactics, etc. I might give my opinion, but my opinion is not what actually happens. Tony's decides, and Tony does a really good job of that. So everyone in the crew, it doesn't matter what I think, it only matters what Tony thinks, and that's important, because if what I thought mattered, then leadership would be unclear, and in a team like that, having non-clear leadership, like a business, is very, very damaging. So it's totally clear Tony decides everything.
So he's in charge of getting the crew together?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's assembled a pretty good second in charge with Chris Nicholson too.
Yeah, well, exactly. And
I mean, he's one of Australia's great sailors, Nico. I mean, no doubt about that.
Yeah, and look, initially it was the two of them sort of dealing with me, and I sort of said, look, I really need one person to hold accountable, and kind of, so we decided that'd be Tony. But honestly, if Tony got around by a bus, it'd be Chris Nicholson for sure, because we're very lucky to have him also, and he is exceptional. And as things go, I mean, they share the leadership, and when Tony's sleeping on the way down, Chris is in charge, and vice versa. So they're very, very comparable, but I think that broadly speaking, someone has to be in charge.
Yeah, sure. So we're sort of getting into Bass Strait, and you're sort of, first night's a bit rugged, isn't it? Rain squalls and wind have come in from all directions. And
yeah, I think what was scary about that was it was quite light winds actually, predominantly, but the trouble is there were the storms, so you could hit heavy winds very quickly, and the problem you had was you're trying to keep up a lot of big sails to keep speed up in the light winds, but you had to be able to pull them down pretty quick when you hit the wind squalls, and that was scary. So I think it was a lot of skill those guys did on that. Also, you had wind changing around a lot, and so you could easily be pointing the wrong direction if you weren't careful, because the wind would change, and if you didn't realise what was going on, you could sort of be not doing the best direction in the race. You had to be able to change the tactics quick.
And changing sails on any boat's difficult, but on a maxi it's not that easy, is it?
Well, I think that's probably the scariest part. If you've got a big sail up that you can't get down, it's very scary, because they are huge, and there's a lot of wind, a lot of waves, and a lot of things that can hurt people. So it's scary.
So we get down to Tasman Island, and Andrew Comanche's got a reasonable lead, and then you close right up to them at Tasman.
Yeah.
And then coming across the bay, they start to wriggle away from you again.
Yes.
And by the time you get to the Derwent, they've got a reasonable lead. And everyone says, well, looks pretty good for Andrew Comanche, I think. Yeah. If most people were saying that.
For sure, and including us.
Yes.
Yeah.
But take us into the river. I mean, I think Comanche arrived at the John Garrow, which is a few miles from the finish, well in the lead, but then the wind collapsed and you snuck up.
Well, look, I think my assessment of what happened is there's two really good things that we did. One is to be close enough in the first place for that to happen, and that was all the previous day and a half sailing very hard against Comanche, because Comanche's a very good boat realistically, and I think where its real strength is that when it's got the right conditions, it can probably go 6 knots faster than we can.
It's a lot lighter than you guys too. I think about 4 tonne lighter, isn't it?
It is, but it's also got significantly more sail area and more riding moment. So if you look at the dynamics between the two, it's actually better in every area. The only weakness it has against us is it's a little bit wider, which is what helps it with riding moment, things like that. But it also means that when it's very light, it has a bit more drag in the water. And the other thing is that the way its keel configuration and things is that it's very good at keeping its nose up, going downwind fast. So you'll notice that, you know, when you see it going fast on a reach, it's got its nose up and it's good. Most of the other boats, including us, we're more nose down, more drag. But in order to do that, there's some dynamics about the keel weight and things like that that broadly mean that when it's really light, they're a little bit back heavy, you know what I mean? So what I think happens for us is that we have a lot of trouble keeping up with them. And what our crew did really well this year was to be very close to them at the end. And then when you get those light conditions, they're not a good boat for those really light conditions. Neither are we. You'd be better off on a boat like Wild Oats, actually. But we're probably a little bit better than them because we're a little bit narrower, about 1 metre narrower, and our keel weight means our back's not so much in the water. So when we saw them stuck there in that hole, it was very good for us. Our crew was really, really sort of wanted to win after years of not coming second. We're very fast on things like furling and tacking, and Tony Mutter and Chris Nicholson were the perfect team to be making all the decisions and steering. If you look at right at the end, Tony Mutter made that decision to steer round them, which was a very good decision. I think it was a decision he made by himself, a spur of the moment, but it was a very, very good thing. But realistically, obviously when we came in and we were close enough, and the way that they executed that was brilliant. So I think there's 2 points. There was being close enough and the execution at the end that made it work.
Well, I think you saw on the vision, we were doing it live, that you could see your tacking was very different to their tacking. You were swinging the boat a lot quicker, and that's probably what you're saying, that, you know, the stern wasn't stuck in the water as much, and the tacking was very different on the two boats.
Yeah, look, I think it's probably a little bit like what happened at the Big Boat Day, is that our guys they've been sailing together for a long time. They were come second a lot, very determined to want to win. So psychologically, they were very focused on it, and also they were pushing it super hard. Like when you're furling up a big sail and furling up, it all comes down to how fast you pull it in and let it out. And if it's dangerous and kind of requires more concentration and can do more damage if you're doing it fast. But it's worth it in those conditions, and they did that the Big Boat Day, and they did the same thing in that, and it proved very crucial. Yeah.
Well, half an hour before the finish, and you're probably thinking, oh, not again, 3 times already bridesmaid, runner-up, and what was it like on board? I mean, it was tense, I guess, and nerve-wracking. And
well, it's funny.
Where's the wind?
Yeah, look, I think I've done this 6 times now, and for me, it didn't seem all that different half an hour before we'd come second again. But obviously the last 15 minutes were incredibly exciting, and obviously the outcome was a complete shock and really good. And I remember when we went over the line, I'm thinking, I'm going to have to think about what I'm going to say here. Like, I certainly didn't have
I'll get to that in a moment. But but it was, I mean, it was, even though you were hardly moving, it was thrilling watching what was happening to a yachty who understood, probably not even to non-yachties, just to see how close it was going to be. Yeah. And 51 seconds, I think, in the end, you've just dived over the line. Yeah. But I think I saw some video, I think, taken on board. I think you were up the bow with a lot of the crew to probably get the bow down, stern up a bit, weren't you?
We were, yeah. Most of us were up the front, clearly. I tend to, whenever there's these high tense moments, I get out of the back, and the reason is I don't trust myself to say something stupid and distract them. So I was up there for a couple of reasons. One is ballast, but 2 to make sure Tony and Nico didn't have to worry about me annoying them.
The silly old owner making silly decisions, But then, you know, at the end it was just so exciting. But on board it must have been great for the crew, because I guess a lot of them have been with you all those times as runner-up. Yeah,
for sure. I remember there's a guy, Mitch White, who's been there the whole time, and he couldn't watch it because he was so and like anyone, including you as commentators, we thought we'd lost it several times in the last 10 minutes, and it was remarkable in the end that they swung it round and got that tactic right at the end to come on the outside was a very, very good manoeuvre that paid off very well for us. Yeah.